All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to talk about Terence "Bud" Crawford, who said a couple things yesterday that were very interesting as they related to the Errol Spence Jr. fight. One, that he wants to do it again, the negotiations. I'm not sure about the fight. And two, that he had been in negotiations for a long time about taking another fight other than Errol Spence Jr. Looks kind of shady to me, but let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to be in the 147-pound division, the land of disappointment for a lot of people in the boxing world, specifically people that were looking to get the biggest fight, one of the biggest and best fights in boxing that could have been made between Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford. That did not happen. Did not happen because Terence Crawford apparently had his eyes on something else the entire time. By his admission, even though he says that he, wants to continue to talk about making the Errol Spence Jr. fight after the David Avancian fight and after Errol Spence Jr., if Errol Spence Jr. actually fights Keith Thurman after the Errol Spence Jr. and Keith Thurman fight. Now, before I get into that, the details of it, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you are new to the channel, please accept my invitation to hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you can be notified of when we release more videos. If you are a longtime subscriber and supporter of the channel, thank you so much for your continued support. I want to dedicate this video to Q Lee. Thank you so much for being such a valuable contributor to the channel and the live streams and the super chats when you come by. It really, really is greatly appreciated. It really is greatly appreciated in the super chats and in the cash apps and the live streams and also in the super thanks in the videos. It really is how we're able to continue to keep the channel going. So thank you guys for your support. So let's get into this, man. We got some good fights coming up in boxing. It seems like in the December, January, February timeframe. There's been some announcements that have been made very recently. One of them, unfortunately, is not the big fight that everybody wanted to see or a lot of people wanted to see, and that is the Errol Spence Jr. Terence Crawford fight, because Terence Crawford agreed to fight David Avancian in December, and it appears as if Errol Spence Jr. will be fighting Keith Thurman in February. Now, the WBC, the reason why I say it's apparent that Errol Spence Jr. will be fighting, or it's possible that Errol Spence Jr. will be fighting Keith Thurman in February, is for two reasons. One, that the WBC ordered the fight between Errol Spence Jr. and Terence and Keith Thurman for the WBC belt. They just did that at the WBC convention. So that to me is good news. I know that Errol said previously that he would not fight him, but he also said that he would be circling the block looking for Terence Crawford. And the only way that he's going to be able to circle the block and get Terence Crawford is if he defends that WBC belt against the mandatory. And that mandatory is now officially Keith Thurman. Now, the reason I say February 4th is because that's the date that he had on the contract for Terence Crawford to fight. I'm not sure where that would be or what venue that would be in, or whether it would stay in Vegas or whether it would go back to Dallas. Can't say that for sure. But when the reports had come out of USA Today and other boxing websites, the date February 4th being targeted was what they used. Now, when I say that there's a bunch of good fights going on, I'm not including that David Avancian fight, because I don't care what you say, I'm not going to be excited about that fight. Way too big a disappointment. However, Terence Crawford says that after that fight is over, he wants to get back in negotiations with Errol Spence Jr. And Errol Spence Jr., of course, has said that he had circling the block looking for him. Now, here's the problem. In a interview that took place on on boxing on DAZN's website, or DAZN boxing show with Akin Barak. Shout out to Akin Barak. Very, very good show. Professional journalists. Love they do their job very, very well. They tried to press the conversation with Terence Crawford about the negotiations with Black Prime, and asked him if Black Prime was one of the two hedge funds or organizations that were attempting to buy the Errol Spence Jr. fight for $50 million early on in the negotiations. Now, Terence Crawford refused to say, who it was or how much, is what he said, even though he had already said how much. Not sure why he wouldn't say it now, but he says that he had actually been in discussions with Black Prime since July, or even had conversations with them before that about making a fight between the two. Now, he said that, he had other things going on, and, that he had other things were his prime concern or whatever. That's what he said to Black Prime. However, it makes a reasonable person wonder, okay, but yeah, why would they call you then? Like, if you had talked to two other people, then maybe you knew you were putting out feelers looking for other fights the entire time. And this is back in the June and July time frame. If it's June, what is that? July, August, September, October, November? It's 5 months. They were only in negotiations for 6 months. So basically the vast majority of the time that they were in discussions to try to make the fight between Errol and Terence, Terence Crawford was in discussions, at least preliminary discussions, with fighting somebody else the entire time. That doesn't sound like somebody that was really pressing to get a fight done quickly, because he was openly negotiating and looking for other options. Right now, as time goes on, whatever he said, the negotiations could have picked up, but I'm sure they would pick up. That's what happens in negotiations over time, right? You breach the conversation, and then you have more phone calls. Shoot, it took Errol and Terence Crawford several years to get to the point where they could even sit down and have a conversation about making that fight. But anyway, now knowing that it wasn't just 2 months ago, right, which never made sense, saying that you had, it was October, so August or something like that, was that, they were basically that they had just brought it up in sometime like in September, and they got it done by October, and it just popped up overnight. Now we know that most definitely is not true. Not that Terence Crawford had ever said that, but that was just, the general thing going around. Like, you knew I was going to be fighting this year. And the ironic thing is that he actually, and this is why I don't believe him. I know y'all call me Terence Crawford haters, but man, it's just the things he say is so convenient. Like, I told him early on that I wasn't really, I had other things going on because I didn't want to mislead them, right? I didn't want them to think, that I was going to go with them and I didn't have other things going on. Well, dude, you did that to Errol Spence. I'm saying, so why would you do it to Errol if you weren't doing it to them? You know what I mean? It's just crazy, man. But anyway, if I was Errol and them, I wouldn't take very seriously the idea of him making that fight again, because it seems like what he used that negotiations for leverage to get himself an easy fight. And you're right there back at the risk of the guy doing that to you again. So, anyway, it is what it is. That's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.